Imagine a place so isolated, so untouched by time, it seems almost unreal. Welcome to the Sierra Madre Occidental, a rugged mountain range stretching across the western edge of Mexico. Its peaks are cloaked in mist, and the air carries the scent of pine trees, filling your lungs with a fresh, earthy aroma. The only sounds? The soft whispers of nature, as if the mountains themselves are sharing secrets with the wind. And in the heart of this tranquil wilderness, tucked away from the bustling world, lies a secluded convent, a place of prayer, peace, and profound devotion. This convent, isolated from the chaos of modern life, has been home to a group of nuns who have chosen to live in service to a higher calling. Among them was Sister Teresa, a 27-year-old nun who had spent nearly 7 years in this remote convent. She arrived here as a young woman seeking purpose and solace, born into a devout family in the small rural town of Jalostotitlan. Known for her deep compassion and unwavering commitment to helping the poor and the sick, Sister Teresa quickly earned the respect and admiration of her fellow nuns. Her gentle nature, combined with her strong faith, made her a pillar of the convent. She was the one who cared for the sick, the one who provided comfort and solace to anyone in need. Her life was a living testament to the values of love, kindness, and selflessness. But on the morning of September 10, 2009, something changed. The silence that had once defined the convent became eerie, almost oppressive. Sister Teresa did not show up for the daily prayers, as was her custom. A fellow nun, concerned for her absence, went to check on her. What she found was the room completely empty. The worry began to build as hours passed, and Sister Teresa's absence grew more troubling. The nuns, who had grown used to the calm rhythm of their daily lives, began to search for their missing sister. At first, the search seemed unremarkable. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of anything wrong. No one believed anything serious had happened to the kind-hearted nun. But as the day wore on and Teresa remained absent, the search expanded to include the surrounding grounds. And that's when the unthinkable was discovered. The lifeless body of Sister Teresa was found at the bottom of a deep, forgotten well behind the convent. The discovery shocked the peaceful community, shattering the calm that had reigned there for so long. The well, long neglected and often overlooked, had become the grim site of a terrible tragedy. The local police were called in to investigate. The initial assumption was that Teresa had fallen into the well during the dark hours of the night, perhaps while walking alone or distracted. After all, accidents were common in such remote and rugged areas. But something didn't add up. The deep bruises on Teresa's wrists, the scratches on her face, and the massive head injury were inconsistent with a simple fall. The nuns, who had always seen Teresa as the embodiment of grace and virtue, now had to face the terrifying possibility that their beloved sister had met a much darker end. When the forensic team arrived, further evidence pointed to the idea that this was no ordinary accident. Defensive wounds on Teresa's arms and the angle of her injuries raised immediate suspicions. How could she have fallen with such injuries? Was she alone? Had she been pushed? Or had she fought for her life before succumbing to the depths of the well? The police, who initially hesitated to jump to conclusions, now found themselves caught in a growing mystery. Was Sister Teresa's death a tragic accident? Or was something far more sinister at play in this place that seemed untouched by the outside world? And if it wasn't an accident, who could have wanted to harm her? These questions began to mount, each one darker than the last. And the peaceful hills of the Sierra Madre Occidental would soon become the backdrop for a shocking crime no one had seen coming. The death of Sister Teresa marked the beginning of an investigation that would uncover buried secrets deep within the convent's walls, secrets that would challenge the very foundation of faith, power, and trust. And as the investigation unfolded, the once peaceful convent would reveal a truth no one could have imagined. A web of deceit, abuse, and murder hidden behind the sanctity of the church. If you're feeling a chill creeping down your spine, you're not alone. The truth behind Sister Teresa's death is far darker than anyone could have anticipated, and the mysteries only deepen as we uncover more. But here's the question. What if the answers lie closer than we think? As you listen to this, ask yourself, what do you believe? Because once we dig deeper, there's no turning back. Subscribe now, because you need to know what happens next. Hit that like button if you're ready to see the truth exposed. And if you've ever sensed that something is off, leave a comment with your thoughts. Because this mystery, it's not over yet. Your voice could be the key to uncovering the secrets that others may fear to speak. Don't just watch, engage. This is just the beginning, and you'll want to be part of the journey. Sister Teresa's life had always been defined by devotion. Born in 1982 in the small rural town of Jalostotitlan, nestled in the heart of Jalisco, Mexico, she was raised by deeply religious and hardworking parents. From a young age, Teresa stood out. Her compassion was innate, and she was always the first to help others. Whether it was tending to the sick or assisting the elderly in her community, she was known as the Little Angel for her generosity and kindness. As Teresa transitioned into adolescence, her spiritual journey deepened. She felt a calling to dedicate her life to God and to serve others. At the age of 20, she left behind her family, her friends, and everything familiar to join the convent, believing she would find peace and a deeper connection with her faith within its sacred walls. The convent, located deep in the Sierra Madre Occidental, was a place removed from the world, a sanctuary of prayer, hard work, and communal living. Teresa quickly adapted to this new life, earning the respect of her fellow nuns with her gentle spirit and tireless dedication. She was particularly drawn to helping the poor and the sick, often traveling to nearby villages, bringing food, medicine, and comfort to those in need. Her reputation as a compassionate and selfless nun spread throughout the region, and although the convent was isolated, it had a small but devoted following of locals who sought her counsel. Whether it was a mother asking for guidance with troubled children, or a sick man seeking prayers, Sister Teresa became the heart of the convent, the embodiment of love, grace, and religious devotion. But despite her outward calm and unwavering faith, there were whispers beneath the surface, whispers of tension within the convent, particularly among the younger nuns. Many began to question the authority of Father Fernando, the head priest, who oversaw the convent's spiritual life. Father Fernando was a man of serious personality, one who commanded respect through fear rather than love. He had been in charge of the convent for over a decade, and rumors of inappropriate relationships with some of the nuns had begun to surface. However, no one dared to speak openly about it. Sister Teresa, however, was not one to blindly follow authority for the sake of conformity. She kept a respectful distance from Father Fernando, but never fully conformed to his controlling ways. Those who knew her well could see the silent defiance in her eyes. She had a clear moral compass and would not tolerate any injustice, especially against the most vulnerable. It was this moral clarity that made her stand out, not just in her religious community, but within the broader church hierarchy as well. Despite the occasional tension, life at the convent remained relatively peaceful. Teresa's days were filled with prayer, work, and serving others. She had become a beloved figure within the convent, and those who knew her were often struck by her unwavering commitment to the principles of love and compassion. Yet, behind the serene image of devotion, there was a darker undercurrent, an undercurrent that would soon erupt in a way no one could have predicted. On the morning of September 10th, 2009, everything seemed to be following its usual routine. The sun rose over the mountains, casting a warm golden glow over the convent's tranquil grounds. The nuns began their morning prayers at dawn, as they always did, but Sister Teresa was absent. At first it was thought that perhaps she had fallen ill, or was simply taking some time to rest. It wasn't uncommon for the nuns to skip morning prayers for personal or health reasons. But as the day wore on and Teresa's absence remained unexplained, concern began to grow. The nuns began searching for her, They checked her room, knocked on her door, and called her name, but there was no answer. Their worry turned to panic as they expanded the search, combing the convent from room to room, hallway to hallway, and even the gardens and surrounding grounds. But it was as if the earth had swallowed her whole. No sign, no trace, no clue as to where she could have gone. In that moment, panic set in. The convent was isolated, and the chances of her getting lost were slim. If something had happened, it was clear they had no way of calling for help. One of the nuns, increasingly worried, approached Sister Beatrice, the head of the convent's administration. Together, they decided to widen the search. It didn't take long before an unsettling discovery was made. The well, long neglected and forgotten, stood at the edge of the convent's property. It was a small, modest structure, but now it had become the scene of an unimaginable tragedy. Deep within its cold, dark waters lay the lifeless body of Sister Teresa. She was positioned unnaturally, her arms and legs twisted as if she had fallen from a great height. The water, now stained with blood, told a much darker story than anyone could have anticipated. At first, it was assumed to be a tragic accident. After all, the well was deep, and it wasn't hard to imagine Sister Teresa, distracted or weary, falling into it alone in the dark. But something about the scene didn't sit right. The nuns knew Teresa well, and they were certain she was not the type to wander off in the middle of the night, let alone fall into a well. When they recovered her body, the true nature of her death began to take shape. Sister Teresa's injuries were not consistent with a simple fall. Deep bruises on her wrists suggested she had been held or restrained. Her face showed signs of a violent struggle, and the most chilling of all, a large open head wound, indicated she had been struck with great force. The forensic results were even more revealing. It was clear that Teresa had not died from a fall, but from murder. Who could have wanted to harm such a beloved figure? The rumors began to spread throughout the convent, and the nuns had to confront the terrifying possibility that one of them might be responsible for such a horrific act. The peace of the convent, once a symbol of spiritual refuge, had been shattered. What began as a search for a missing sister had quickly turned into a nightmare that none of them could have foreseen. If this has left you with a sense of disbelief, you're not alone. The investigation into Sister Teresa's death is about to reveal secrets no one could have predicted. Stay with me as we uncover the chilling truth behind her murder and the dark forces that may have been at play. Like if you're as shocked as I am, and subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking twist in this disturbing mystery. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this was a tragic accident? Or is there something far more sinister at play? Let's dive deeper into the investigation together. As the investigation into Sister Teresa's death continued, the police quickly realized this was no ordinary case. What initially seemed like an accident was now unfolding into something much more sinister. The nuns, shocked and confused, were forced to face the unthinkable. Their beloved Sister Teresa had been brutally murdered. But who would do such a thing, and why? The local authorities, led by Detective Juan Martinez, arrived at the convent the morning after the body was discovered. Their initial reaction was one of disbelief. A crime of this magnitude inside the walls of a convent, a place that had always represented peace and purity, seemed almost impossible. But as the investigation deepened, the evidence began to paint a chilling picture. Detective Martinez inspected the scene of the crime, the well where Teresa had been found. The serene, almost sacred atmosphere of the convent seemed to be tainted by the brutality of what had occurred. The injuries on Teresa's body were telling a story of violence, not an accidental fall. Her defensive wounds indicated a struggle, and the head injury pointed to a brutal blow. The detective began his questioning with the nuns who had been closest to Sister Teresa. One by one, they were interviewed, and although they were all devastated by the loss, it became clear that something was amiss. The nuns spoke of Teresa as a kind, compassionate figure who had never given anyone reason to harm her. But as the detective dug deeper, he started to uncover cracks in the story. Sister Beatrice, the convent's administrator, was one of the first to speak with Detective Martinez. On the surface, she seemed calm, almost too calm. Her answers were measured, but there was something about her demeanor that felt forced. She spoke of Teresa with reverence, describing her as a devoted and hardworking nun, but there was no hint of the concern one would expect in such a tragic situation. At first, the detective dismissed his suspicions. After all, Sister Beatrice had known Teresa for years, and it made sense that she would speak highly of her. But as the conversation continued, something didn't sit right. Beatrice's responses were just too perfect, too rehearsed. It was as if she was trying to maintain control of the narrative. Then another nun, Sister Elena, mentioned something that caught the detective's attention. She spoke of growing tension between Sister Teresa and Father Fernando, the head priest of the convent. According to Sister Elena, Teresa had started to express concerns about Father Fernando's increasingly authoritarian behavior. The priest, who had been in charge of the convent for over a decade, had earned the respect of many, but others, particularly the younger nuns, had begun to question his methods. Father Fernando was a man who inspired fear, not love. His approach to leadership was cold and calculating, and over the years, rumors had begun to spread about his inappropriate relationships with some of the nuns. But no one had dared to speak out, until now. Sister Teresa, known for her strong moral compass, had apparently begun to challenge the priest's authority, and this did not sit well with him. The detective knew he had to speak with Father Fernando. The priest's influence over the convent was undeniable, and if there was any chance of uncovering the truth, it was crucial to understand his role in all of this. When Father Fernando was finally brought in for questioning, his calm and measured response only made the detective more suspicious. Father Fernando denied any involvement in Teresa's death. He spoke of her in glowing terms, calling her a devoted servant of God, a woman of exceptional character. But there was something unsettling about his behavior. His responses seemed calculated, almost too perfect. He didn't seem distressed by the loss of someone he had supposedly cared for deeply. Instead, he appeared more concerned with maintaining his image, with ensuring that no one suspected him of wrongdoing. As the detective continued to probe, he began to uncover more disturbing information. Teresa's defiance of Father Fernando's authority had not gone unnoticed. Some of the younger nuns had confided in her about the mistreatment they had suffered at the hands of the priest. Teresa had become a threat to his control over the convent, and as the investigation unfolded, it became increasingly clear that she had paid the ultimate price for challenging him. But the investigation was far from over. The more the detective uncovered, the darker the truth became. What was initially thought to be an isolated incident was now beginning to look like part of a much larger conspiracy. As the evidence mounted, it became evident that the death of Sister Teresa was not an accident. It was a calculated murder, part of a larger plan to silence anyone who dared to challenge Father Fernando's authority. The detective's suspicions were confirmed when new information came to light. Maria, a young servant who had worked at the convent for several years, came forward with crucial information that would change the course of the investigation. Maria had witnessed Father Fernando holding secret meetings with some of the nuns late at night. These meetings, always shrouded in secrecy, had taken place behind closed doors, away from the watchful eyes of the other sisters. Maria had overheard snippets of conversations during these late-night meetings, but she never understood the full scope of what was being discussed. However, the tense atmosphere during these meetings had always struck her as strange. Now, as the investigation gained momentum, Maria's testimony became one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. Her account revealed that there had been several unexplained disappearances of nuns over the past 5 years. These nuns, like Teresa, had simply vanished without a trace. The convent had never officially reported these disappearances, but rumors had circulated among the residents of the town. Maria believed that Father Fernando and Sister Beatrice were somehow involved in these disappearances, though she couldn't provide concrete proof. The police, now armed with this new information, began to dig deeper into the convent's records. What they discovered was chilling. The records of the missing nuns had been mysteriously erased from the convent's archives, as if someone had gone to great lengths to cover up their existence. This, combined with Father Fernando and Sister Beatrice's suspicious behavior, led the investigators to believe that the convent was hiding something far more sinister than anyone had imagined. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives realized that they were uncovering a web of manipulation, abuse, and murder that stretched deep into the heart of the convent. Father Fernando and Sister Beatrice had orchestrated a scheme to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to their power. The peaceful convent, once a sanctuary of faith, was revealed to be a place of dark secrets and manipulation. This investigation is just beginning to unravel the twisted truth, and you're not going to want to miss what happens next. The darkness that has been hidden behind the sacred walls of the convent is about to be exposed. Will justice be served, or will the truth be buried forever? Like if you're as horrified as I am by these revelations, and subscribe so you can follow the rest of this chilling investigation. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Do you think Father Fernando and Sister Beatrice were involved, or is there more to this story? Let's uncover the truth together. As the investigation took a deeper turn, the discovery of more sinister secrets within the convent was inevitable. The police were now fully aware that the murder of Sister Teresa was far from an isolated incident. It was part of a larger, darker conspiracy. The uncovering of the past disappearances of several other nuns had shifted the entire scope of the case. The authorities were starting to piece together a chilling pattern of abuse and control that had festered behind the convent's serene walls for years. The police, now fully entrenched in the investigation, began to interview every member of the convent, from the most senior nuns to the staff who worked behind the scenes. Everyone had a story to tell, but only a few were brave enough to speak the truth. Maria, the young servant who had provided the first breakthrough, was becoming more instrumental as her revelations continued to shock the investigators. Maria described the secretive nature of the late-night meetings between Father Fernando and Sister Beatrice. These weren't just casual discussions. These meetings were the heart of a disturbing power dynamic that was unfolding behind the closed doors of the convent. The more the detectives learned, the more it became clear that Father Fernando and Sister Beatrice were not just leaders in the convent. They were orchestrators of a deeply corrupted system of manipulation and fear. And then came the most shocking discovery of all: the missing nuns. The police had believed that the disappearances were isolated incidents, perhaps even voluntary departures. But the reality was much more harrowing. When they began to delve into the convent's archives, they found that records of the missing sisters had been deliberately erased, wiped clean from the convent's books. It was as if someone had gone to great lengths to conceal the truth. What was once thought to be a series of coincidental absences was now confirmed to be part of an elaborate cover-up. Further investigation revealed that Father Fernando and Sister Beatrice were not only complicit in the disappearances, but had been directly involved in the systematic abuse of the nuns. The documents that were uncovered from hidden corners of the convent's administrative records revealed that several nuns had suffered physical and psychological abuse under the guise of spiritual discipline. The abuse, which had been going on for years, was more than just a series of isolated incidents. It was a well-coordinated plan to maintain control over the convent and its inhabitants. As the case progressed, the police began to connect the dots between the recent murder of Sister Teresa and the long history of abuse. Teresa's strong moral compass, her refusal to accept Father Fernando's growing authoritarian rule, had made her a target. Her death was not a random act of violence. It was a calculated move to silence her and eliminate a threat to Father Fernando's control. The investigation took an even darker turn when forensic evidence revealed that Teresa had been drugged before her death. Her body contained traces of a sedative, indicating that she had been incapacitated before being thrown into the well. This revelation confirmed the theory that her murder had been premeditated. Teresa had not simply been a victim of an unfortunate accident. She had been targeted, drugged, and ultimately killed to keep her from exposing the truth. With this new evidence, the police closed in on Father Fernando and Sister Beatriz. The walls of their deception were starting to crumble. The investigation had now become a race against time, as the authorities worked tirelessly to gather enough evidence to bring the perpetrators to justice. In the final stages of the investigation, new witnesses came forward, individuals who had once feared speaking out, but who now realized the importance of their testimonies. These individuals, some of whom had once been in the convent, confirmed the disturbing rumors that had long circulated about Father Fernando's control over the nuns. They described the psychological manipulation, the threats, and the abuse that had occurred behind the convent's doors. It became clear that Father Fernando was not just a priest. He was a predator who used his position of power to control, manipulate, and destroy the lives of the women who had placed their trust in him. Sister Beatriz, his loyal accomplice, had helped him cover up the abuse, the disappearances, and now the murder of Sister Teresa. The police's final breakthrough came when an anonymous tip led them to a remote cave hidden deep in the mountains, miles away from the convent. Inside this desolate place, the bodies of 3 other missing nuns were found. These women, too, had been silenced, discarded as if they were nothing more than unwanted objects, left to rot in the dark corners of the earth. The discovery of these bodies confirmed what the investigators had long suspected. The murders of these nuns were not accidents. They were part of a calculated effort to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to Father Fernando's authority. The convent, once a symbol of faith and sanctuary, had been revealed as a breeding ground for corruption, fear, and murder. With irrefutable evidence in hand, the police moved to arrest Father Fernando and Sister Beatriz. Both were taken into custody and interrogated. Their confessions were chilling, exposing the depth of their manipulation and cruelty. Father Fernando, with a cold and calculated demeanor, explained that his actions had been driven by a desire to maintain control over the convent. To him, the nuns were mere pawns, tools to be controlled and manipulated in order to preserve his power. He showed no remorse, no guilt, only a sense of entitlement, as if his actions were justified. Sister Beatriz, though less cold than Fernando, showed little remorse as well. She admitted to her involvement in the murders, but her reasons were just as disturbing. She had been loyal to Fernando, believing that her actions were part of a greater cause. She believed that by eliminating those who threatened Fernando's authority, she was somehow protecting the sanctity of the convent. The trial of Father Fernando and Sister Beatriz, which began in April 2010, captivated the public. The shocking nature of the crimes, combined with the involvement of trusted religious figures, left the community reeling. Families of the victims sought justice for the lives that had been taken, for the lives that had been destroyed in the name of power and control. In the end, both Father Fernando and Sister Beatriz were convicted of multiple charges, including murder, abuse, and conspiracy. Their sentencing sent shockwaves through the religious community and beyond, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. The convent, once a place of faith, was now a symbol of the darkest depths of human cruelty. As for Sister Teresa, her death, though tragic, had sparked a chain of events that brought the truth to light. She was remembered as a martyr, a brave soul who gave her life in the pursuit of justice. The convent, now abandoned, stands as a reminder of the horrors that can unfold when power is abused and when silence is allowed to prevail. The story of Sister Teresa is not just one of tragedy. It is a powerful reminder that even in the most sacred places, darkness can lurk. If you've been as moved by this story as I have, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life mysteries and untold tales. Like if you believe justice was served, and comment below to share your thoughts. What do you think about the shocking truth that was uncovered? The story doesn't end here. There's always more to uncover.